Papers, former newspaper editor Phil Hall and Guardian writer and author Rowena Davies.
She's gorgeous.
Just distracting.
That's what you were thinking. We all know that. We all know that.
You knew what was on my mind, I can tell. Yeah. Let's get on with it. Front page of the Daily Telegraph. Before we get in real trouble. Front page of the Daily Telegraph.
Started it with the menopause.
Pictures of poor people down in Somerset suffering from more floods, and a headline there saying we're all going to have to pay more for our household insurance as a result of that to compensate for those people who get flooded time and time again. Mail have a piece saying that MPs have been given corporate tickets to the best event at the Olympics, the 100 men's final, 100-metre men's final. On the front page of The Sun, this gentleman, remember the shooting in Clacton, horrible shooting, poor policeman lost his life. This guy here saying that the policeman took his bullet. The bullet was meant for him.
The Times has this story coming out of a court case where a family have been found guilty of, a traveller family have been found guilty of forcing men to work as slaves. The Guardian has as their main headline that security concern at the Olympics and 3,500 troops being called in to meet the shortfall. And their picture is the Rolling Stones' 50-year anniversary. Good on you, lads. And the Daily Mirror's latest headline to do with the death of Eva Rowsing is there. And Kate Winslet, Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, furious. Kate Winslet, what am I talking about? Kate Middleton are furious that their honeymoon photos have been published in Australian magazine.
What's caught your eye, Phil?
Well, the story, sitting comfortably, read to your child in Independent. This is, The Times, page 11. And they're talking about how 40% of children don't reach the sort of accepted reading age by the time they start school. And the suggestion is that parents aren't reading to children as much as they used to. Wealthy parents tend to, 80% reach the required sort of standard, I suppose, because likelihood there is one of the parents at home. Poorer families do very well, but it's the ones in the middle who I suspect are struggling with both parents working, and they struggle to find time to read. And there's a professor here saying it's absolutely essential to development of a child. I've got children aged 13, 11 and 2, and it's very different. It's very interesting how different it is for the 11-year-old to the 2-year-old, because the 2-year-old can now play with an iPad and read Thomas the Tank Engine stories. I'm sure you've got this experience. They can do things.
And the world two.
Oh, it's extraordinary.
There are video and apps, aren't there, aimed at 2-year-olds, and they are, by the way, fantastic. I think we all sort of frown and say they shouldn't spend too much time on a computer or watching television. But you know, the Thomas the Tank Engine app, for instance.
Yeah, they know how to swipe it.
They come alive. They're puzzles that you can do on screen, and I think one of the things we've got to realise is the world is going to change so significantly again in the next 10 years that actually, I don't know whether books we'll still see books in the same form as they used to.
Yeah, but it's interesting if you're looking at different income groups as well, because how many families at the bottom can afford that kind of iPad and all of the accessories that go with it.
Absolutely.
But what I thought was good about this story was that usually it was one small group at the bottom who's like this feral underclass who were, you know, never treating their children right. But what this article was saying, it's actually an issue for everybody across the spectrum, no matter what class you come from, and actually we've all got to do better.
I bet it's time. I bet time's at the root of it as well.
What's caught your eye?
Yeah.
Well, it's quite interesting. This story about Tony Blair coming back into politics now. He's been given a new role as sporting advisor to Ed Miliband, and it was quite interesting because I was at the ceremony last night at the Olympic stadium. I mean, at the football stadium in Arsenal, and it was very interesting to see the kind of 1990s celebrities all out there. It was incredibly glamorous. And what I think is quite interesting about the story is that the position that Tony Blair has been given is actually quite ceremonial. It probably won't even come with a salary, but what it does indicate is that Tony Blair is willing to back Ed Miliband, and we know that he will only ever back winners, and that's quite significant.
What's he actually going to do,
I don't see that at all, by the way. I think Tony Blair is on his way back. He will not sit in the background. He's not a gentleman who's going to sit there and do some ambassadorial role. You'll see Tony Blair now come right to the fore. He's a man with great ambition. Ed Miliband is not a winner. I think people look at Ed, especially on television. He had a good session with the Prime Minister's Question Time yesterday, but some of his performances have made him look very second-rate, I think, compared to somebody like Tony Blair. And I think it's going to be very hard for Ed Miliband to deal with somebody of such enormous reputation and somebody who's a worldwide statesman. As a backroom boy, I don't see that.
I would be actually very surprised. That it was interesting to watch them both offer a speech yesterday, and they were actually incredibly comparable. And the other thing with Tony Blair is, of course, he is so massively tainted by his record in Iraq that he will never be able to come to the fore in the same way that he was. I mean, even last night there were protesters outside heckling, shame on you for going in, just because of his presence.
Well, I think if that's true, why invite him back?
One more story.
Well, I think the other story that's interesting when we're talking about the Olympics and sport, what do these have in common? They're all banned for the Olympic Games. And they're talking about everything, some really sort of strange items, like if you turn up in a T-shirt with any sort of political slogan, they won't let you in. I mean, I can't see that the cameras are going to focus on political slogans, but I guess, you know, we're reading stories about potentially that Argentina might launch a protest during the Olympic Games, and they're clearly trying to stop that happening. Of course, there are things like picnic hampers and games. You can't bring frisbees, which you used to be able to do in the past. But, you know, the thing about the Olympic Games here is you can only attend a session for 3 hours or 4 hours, and you're not going all day if you've got tickets.
Got to leave it there, Sally. Thanks to you both. Thanks very much indeed.
So to come this morning.